Look, we're never going to decide which film to review at this rate.
Exactly. That's why you should cave in and do Time Runners.
Commando Leopard is clearly the superior movie.
Look, the future of this review depends on this decision. This is the tipping point.
The only way I would change my mind and decide to review Time Runners is if something from one of these films burst in through that door and... Huh. Usually that's the cue for...
Huh? What the?
Oh, there's my copy of Girls Gone Wild 13.
Well, son of a bitch!
What is a blind man want with a DVD?
Hello, I'm Chris, and welcome to this week's Movie Vault 666 crossover edition review of Time Runners, I guess.
And I'm the film interpreter, and today we're looking at a sci-fi film. What exactly is this film about, anyway?
I don't know, I thought you were the film interpreter.
Well, it's a sci-fi thriller at any rate, starring mainly people who don't have pictures on their IMDb profiles.
One of them plays Sally, an FBI agent whose relationship with her husband Horatio is at the centre of a time travel plot for some reason.
Are you being deliberately vague to avoid spoilers, or is the film just incoherent?
Guess the only way to find out is to watch the film itself. So our film opens to a funeral replete with extras milling about like it's Max Magician all over again, and it's here that we meet our main character Sally as she watches snow covering something.
But then as we watch, the snow starts falling upwards.
She's probably just in the southern hemisphere.
What?
You know, like how toilets flush the other way down there? Must be the same as snow.
I see.
Well, at least that would explain why she seems so underwhelmed by the snow changing direction.
Or she could just have time travel powers?
Don't be silly, time travel powers don't exist.
So anyway, as the credits appear, we are shown that this is a 95er story. Now this might not mean anything to you or anyone, as Time Runners is the first feature film in the series. Although fortunately the website does inform us that there are more on the way, as well as graphic novels, books and more.
How are you supposed to start a direct-to-DVD franchise that doesn't involve mega sharks? And more importantly, why would you want to?
Because of gripping scenes like this?
The navigator needs to have enough to go on. He needs to insert you before they find the tipping point. Do you understand?
Better than anyone.
Especially the audience.
Wow, Google Street View has actually become less impressive in the future.
It's even sent him to sleep.
It's here we meet Horatio, a physicist working on a time travel project and one of the dullest men alive.
Anyway, Horatio sits down and begins writing his diary as a dishevelled group of carolers shows up outside.
December 19th, 2003. I shall endeavor in this ghostly little book both to entertain and inform.
Well, I guess 1 out of 2 ain't bad.
So as the choir sings, Horatio's gaze is drawn to one of the women, possibly because she was making a face like Creighton attempting to portray ambivalence.
But this is interrupted as a group of youths start throwing snowballs at the carolers before someone attempts to steal their money.
Money for a very special science project. And I
guess mucking is a shared interest. I guess it was meant to be.
So, somewhat jarringly, the two are now in a relationship together, and they go through all the usual relationship activities, driving together, lying on a trampoline in the middle of the woods, and going to a firing range. That's a unique date spot.
Although in the interest of fairness, during this montage there are scenes where the two characters discuss their interests, such as literature, and it does actually make the characters seem connected without coming across as too forced. Although I will say that those scenes are not as effective as the mugging scene, which was just pure inspiration.
Anyway, Horatio reveals that he plans to marry Sally, and this is the vaguely defined tipping point.
Christmas Eve 2004. I'm going to propose tonight. This is the tipping point. The future
Meanwhile, the Navigator attempts to lock onto Sally using vague pseudoscience.
Respect the science!
Somehow this results in Horatio dying off screen, and the audience is left none the wiser as to why any of this is important. Anyway, Sally returns home but finds Horatio's ghost is waiting for her. Also, hello reflection of camera light in the screen door.
No, we're not doing that again!
So naturally, the next scene is of a few of Sally's friends who are rehearsing for a play of A Christmas Carol. The scene doesn't really advance the plot, but it does give some advice for whoever wrote the scenes in the future.
Guys, we have to understand the lines.
Once that is over, we're then treated to Sally's rendition of We Wish You a Merry Christmas, although she does seem to get the lines wrong.
Good tidings.
To be fair, that's probably partly because she's confused as to why earlier scenes from the movie are being randomly intercut into this one.
So anyway, because the film seems to have finally gotten bored of not establishing anything, we finally learn a little bit about Sally's job. It appears that she watches poor quality YouTube videos and then marks them on a map. I think the next one's going to be an episode of Movie Vault 666.
No, it's...
Seriously, I can watch that again and again.
Oh.
But that's not all she does. Afterwards, she heads to a lab where people are singing.
She's a jolly good fellow, for she's a jolly good fellow, for she's a jolly good fellow, which nobody can deny.
You guys are total nerds.
It's not cool to give a shit about people's birthdays, you losers.
But the real reason she's here is explained by another worker.
We've narrowed it down to 50 possibilities. Some are iterations of important dates, keywords in his personal life. Analysts say there's a 58% chance that the correct password is in the top 10 on the list. 80% chance it's in the top 30.
And not to put any pressure on you or anything, but it's been about 5 years of work to get to this point, and if we don't get you now, we probably never will.
Guys, we have to understand the lines.
Wow, we could get a lot of mileage out of that clip.
So it seems that she has to enter a password from a list of potential options to access some kind of account, but 3 wrong answers will shut the account down. Now, naturally, it would be more tense if I actually knew what she did or why this account was important in any way, but, you know, that wouldn't be in keeping with Time Runner's method of storytelling.
She manages to access the account, the film heavily hinting that she's using her time powers to do it. And we are then treated to another brief scene from the future, in which they talk about sci-fi mumbo-jumbo without actually affecting the plot.
Progress report, Navigator.
Gravity is about where we need it, but I can't get reliable luck.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
So after that and some more wacky time travel hijinks at the local pool hall, and another visit from Horatio, Sally decides to hang outside the adoption clinic like a weirdo, but then the film remembers that this goes absolutely nowhere and she drives off.
Instead, the next scene of any importance comes, and Sally meets her new boss... this guy. At which point we get the standard exposition setting up quite how unusually gifted our main character is.
I am 5'7", cute, Gemini.
Multiple accommodations, youngest new female agent in 20 years, expert marksman, unusually gifted in interrogation, code breaking, undercover ops, pursuit.
But then, when he starts pushing her about how obsolete and vague her job seems to be, she starts using her time powers to change her answers.
Sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire.
Affirmative. However, I'm sure that you can understand that it's my job to make sure that man-hours spent have tangible results, accomplishing specific national security goals, making arrests, etc. Now, is that likely to happen if you're chasing ghosts and UFOs?
Well, first I have to learn Martian, so I can read them their rights.
Is that likely to happen if you're chasing ghosts and UFOs?
Well, it's possible the phenomena I've been tracking are some way connected.
For me, this is one of the main problems with the film. The main character's time powers are vague and never really put to much use, like changing conversations or cheating at pool. I honestly wonder if the film may have been better off if she didn't have any, and all of the sci-fi elements came from other sources, like the people in the future. Of course, that may not work in later installments with the expanded 95ers universe, but it just seems so pointless when our character mostly puts her powers to such poor use.
Now come on, she's a control freak with time travel powers. It's the perfect ability for her.
You know, this is great stuff, but they never put enough salt on it. But I always keep some stashed away. Whoops. I always keep some stashed away.
Just a second, sir. I don't think you want that much salt.
Now wait a minute. I thought Sally was using her time travel powers. Why is there still salt on the desk if it was never spilt? I mean, was it just left behind somehow? Why? That doesn't make sense!
Don't ruin my story with your logic.
Anyway, the next scene involves Sally coming home to find an answer message from her doctor.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Biggs. This is Dr. Gopal. I'm very sorry to leave this message on your machine, but I'm going out of town with my family. I'm afraid the tests came back positive.
What was that about?
My baby might have cystic fibrosis. That is so ironic that it's genetic.
Gah, too stupid to mock.
The use of words expressing something other than their literal intention. Now that is irony.
I don't know, maybe she used her time-travelling powers to change the definition.
This baby is going to need 24/7 attention. I am a single parent. My mother is senile. My father is dead. I have no siblings.
By the way, spoilers, this baby is never actually born in this film, and none of this actually affects the plot in any way. All it does is add even more subplots to this already convoluted film.
In fact, the only reason this scene is even here is to give us a backstory as to how Horatio and Sally got together.
He was going to propose, and I knew that if I went in the restaurant, I'd say yes. So I just sat there. I was about to tell the cab driver to take me to the airport when this blind guy got in. He must have thought it was available or something.
So it's the blind man's fault you got married?
It wasn't anybody's fault!
Okay, sorry!
So after a few more Horatio sightings, during which time Sally does her best to get herself committed, Sally heads back to work but finds her employer is clearing out her office.
Sally, I didn't expect to see you here today. Go ahead, take it to my office.
What are you doing?
I'm just making some changes while you're on maternity leave.
But once he leaves, Sally starts talking with Jerry and a main plot of some sort starts to emerge.
Director's been after me all morning.
What do you got?
All right, here are your dots. And you neglected to tell me that one of them was down the street from my house. It's a little unsettling, don't you think?
Tell me about it.
So what are they, Sally?
Yes, what manner of forbidden secrets could there be that would cause Horatio's death? Secrets so big that they could clearly shake the foundations of time itself!
The dots represent really, really strange phenomena.
Not quite what I was expecting.
Yeah, I don't even want to play a dramatic sting, not even ironically.
Verified?
Mostly, yes. And there are a ton of them. Up and down the East Coast. Most are recent, but I've actually traced them back a couple hundred years.
So this is it? We finally get some hope of a plot in this film, and all it is a dozen strange things that aren't even verified yet?
Now come on, one of those things was a root beer bottle cap embedded in a plane. Now what else will draw an audience in like that?
At any rate, Jerry somehow decides that the dots are in a pattern consistent with an explosion.
Okay. Well, you're right. These are consistent with the typical blast pattern, but it's something odd is happening here, okay? Normally, when the program runs, it looks for factors like wind resistance, gravity, aerodynamics, things like that. But these coordinates, they don't work unless you take all of those factors out. It's like a bomb that went off in another dimension.
So naturally, Sally wants to get to the center of it.
However, the FBI have other ideas and decide to lock down Jerry's laptop.
So, No security flaws there.
So anyway, Sally's boss shows up and confiscates the laptop. Sally decides to take her maternity leave, but a much worse fate is reserved for Jerry, who is erased from existence simply for the crime of having no further purpose.
Actually, is getting out of this film considered a punishment?
Hi-oh! Horatio's appearances finally have some purpose in the story, when he leads Sally to his research notes, which he has hidden. Meanwhile, in the future, the Navigator and Sour-Faced McGee are squabbling over the vague mission and providing some top-notch exposition.
You must understand this is more than a job, Borrego. This track is everything.
I need more information. Who is she?
Classified.
Is Kennings after her?
It won't be long before one of the stooges tries to find the tipping point.
So, they want to make a big change. Why? Why her?
Classified.
I need to know for the track.
It's classified.
But why is it so personal to you?
Oh god, this is hilarious. You can just put in any military clip here and it won't change the tone at all.
Pardon the cliche, but my job is both an art and a science. You must understand that.
You must understand this is more than a job, Borrego. This track is everything.
I need more information. Who is she?
Classified.
Is Kennings after her?
I'm asking the fucking questions here, Private. Do you understand? Sir, yes, sir. Well, thank you very much. Can I be in charge for a while? Sir, yes, sir.
It won't be long before one of the stooges tries to find the tipping point.
So, they want to make a big change. Why? Why her?
Classified.
I need to know for the track.
It's classified.
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Why is it so personal to you?
That's why.
That's my truck out there.
So whilst the future people try and find a way to rescue Sally from vaguely defined evil people and save the future, Sally begins reading through Horatio's notes.
These notes apparently contain a video of Horatio playing chess against a pretentious douchebag eating cake, who is clearly being lined up as the franchise villain.
But the notebooks also reveal that Horatio believed his wife must have magical powers because...
I've always known that Sally's a little unusual. She is inhumanly punctual, as if time is on her schedule and not the other way around. She's a perfect marksman, which has become something of a novelty among her colleagues at the FBI. She's never been in a traffic accident. She does a lot of cooking, though she leaves the cleanup to me even if I'm gone for weeks at a time, but I've never seen her drop a dish.
Wait a minute, he's convinced his wife has time travel powers? The film hasn't even convinced me of that. And according to the back of the box, that's supposed to be the plot. I mean, it's not as if it's ever actually established that she's the one causing these time travel problems, so I thought it was the future people.
Well, the film does hint at her being responsible, and there is a little montage, but I do see your point.
It's not as if she's even been set up as a control freak. They just have Horatio say it a lot.
Professing romance and reconciliation, I invited her out to a nice restaurant. Little did she know she was part of a little experiment. I pretended to get a little tipsy with a secret mission in my mind to break every dish I could. Of all things, Sally hates to be part of a scene she can't control, especially in public. But I was determined. I went for the wine glass, the salad bowl, the dinner plate, even the waiter. But amazingly, Sally was ready for me.
So then he just starts ranting on about maps and how, if his theory is correct, he should be able to find broken crockery within the restaurant.
And of course, before dinner I made sure we were using dishes that had never been in that restaurant before.
Sure, like any sane person?
His ranting also reveals that he no longer wanted to be with Sally, and instead wanted to study her.
She needs to be studied, but later. Right now she's in the way. It's not fair of me to hold her love captive. I'm a scientist, right? Aren't I supposed to be removing dangerous and unpredictable variables from my life?
But naturally, it's been too long since we had any irrelevant bullcrap, and so our relations come over.
Fortunately, the scene is interrupted when goons attack the house, and Sally actually does something vaguely important with her powers. However, the goons turn out to be cyborgs or something, I don't know, and Sally is unable to defeat them when one holds a gun on her.
9 seconds, right?
Still too much gravity.
Sally's boss arrives on the scene.
Have we actually been given a name for him?
I don't know, but it turns out that he's a bad guy. And like a big dope, he admits that he's filling the car with knockout gas.
What's that?
Just a second.
Sir, if you have something to tell me, I need to know now.
I just injected myself with the antidote to the gas you've been breathing since you entered the car. No, don't worry, it's not toxic.
But fortunately for him, there's no footage of Sally just before she gets into the car, so she can't just time walk back to there.
Fortunately for Sally, her boss just brings her to Horatio's workplace, where it transpires that he was working on a time machine, and that an explosion here seemingly killed him and is the cause of all the strange phenomena Sally has seen.
It's a long and boring explanation, so all you need to know is that I 100% agree with Sally's reaction here.
This is all very hard to believe.
Changes in time are generally extremely hard to make. Your husband was a very prideful and stubborn man. That makes it very hard to dislodge his timeline. And for similar reasons, the men who attacked your home failed to kill you. A very straightforward approach on their part, but you had too much gravity.
Wait, are you calling me fat?
Anyway, Sally eventually agrees to use the time machine to go back in time and not get married or have the baby.
You know, a lot of movies would have had their main character have the exact opposite goal.
I have to agree with you there. I mean, while we don't really know what the bad guy's aim is, because, you know, they're trying really hard to hide it. Why is she doing this? I mean, she doesn't want to get married or get pregnant? How selfish can she be?
So with the aim of denying her child a life, she then warps back in time and Jesus, did she just murder that woman? Wow, it's probably a good thing that this machine doesn't work like most matter transporters in films.
Actually, the best thing about this scene is the husband's reaction.
Okay.
I think so.
What is your problem, lady?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You okay? She's pregnant.
Stupid teleporting chicks, thinking they can just warp into my girlfriend.
Actually, was she pregnant before or after Sally teleported there?
I think it's probably best if that's never explained.
Welcome to Christmas Eve, 2004. Pretty amazing, huh?
Yeah. What a magical time.
It's almost like I'm really there.
Sally tells her boss all about what happened on the night she got married, and so the boss sends a guy to stop the blind man and stop her getting married.
Stop the blind man.
When your father died, but you can now.
Okay, now I'm confused. I mean, if she wanted to go back in time more than a few seconds, then why did she choose that time period? I mean, if she didn't want to stop herself from marrying Horatio, then why did the future captain say that she gave them the tipping point because she wanted to stop it?
Sally ends up deciding that she does want the baby and tries to stop herself from leaving.
But Sally fails and ends up back before she left and still pregnant somehow. Either time is screwing around or the editor got bored and found some new effects on Premiere Pro.
Sally then rereads Horatio's notebook and discovers that he theorised that the time machine he was working on wasn't powerful enough to be responsible for all the crazy crap Sally was investigating earlier on, and that multiple time machines would be required. He also figured this must be the work of none other than that cake-eating douchebag from earlier in the film.
Who?
Kennings.
Oh. Sorry, this film has way too many characters. Sally then continues to read Horatio's diary and discovers that he intended to disable the time machine.
Finally, we're getting somewhere. Now we can get to some kind of resolution.
Yeah, unfortunately she gets erased from the timeline at this point.
Timeline obliteration recorded at 18:01 hours.
Sally's gone.
Timeline preeminent. Transmutation complete.
Mom? Ouch. That's too bad. Guess we'll have to watch Commando Leopard then.
Actually, she gets better for no reason.
What?
Yeah. She even gets a present from Jerry that tells her the location of the time machine after he decided he didn't want to be in the movie anymore.
So in an ending that is in no way confusing, Sally arrives at the time machine just as her past self is leaving, but due to gravity or some such gobbledygook, she is fading out and can't prevent herself from leaving. But it turns out that the future people are being controlled by Sally's future self, who orders a navigator to send her son, Sourface McGee, to travel through her past self, which is a technique that is never explained or shown, because that's just how this movie does things.
Sally's son then tells her that Horatio is still alive, just in the future, and then she time travels back to the point where she was going to meet Horatio and runs into the same restaurant. Here, she then leaves a message for Horatio before fading out.
Write this for me, please. Okay.
Sure, lady who just vanished.
So with the timeline restored, this somehow saves the day. The future evil people stop attacking, or something. The Christmas Carol play comes together. Present Sally learns she can't control everything, or I assume she has, before going into labour. Sally presumably gives birth on Highway 95, making her son a 95er as well, and the film ends with Sally and her son planning to get Horatio.
We're still here.
Now let's go get your father.
And there's also a post-credit scene which alludes to the blind man, who may or may not be who he seems.
And that was Time Runners. What the hell just happened?
Never have I seen a film where so much happens and yet so little. The main problem is that the film feeds you a lot of information but never really gives you a breather to absorb it. It jumps from one part to the next, assuming you've gained everything you need to know in the few seconds they give you. And yet, it takes a while to get to the main plot that the synopsis tells you about. I mean, once the main plot starts, it still suffers from jumping around, but it does flow a lot better. The special effects are hit and miss. I mean, sometimes they're really good, but other times you can tell the film didn't really have a decent budget. The acting, though, is pretty damn good. These people gave it their all in this. In fact, putting aside the weak story and the hit and miss special effects, I wouldn't actually mind seeing the sequels or the 95's universe.
Well, I definitely agree with you for the most part. This film does have some good performances at times and does start to come together a little better towards the end. But in my opinion, the film is not what you need when you're trying to start a new series. The film is a mess because it tries to balance too many elements, and this is why it feels that nothing is happening at times, and then too much is happening later on. Add in the fact that the sci-fi elements are poorly explained, and it doesn't do enough to make a sequel worth watching. But for me, one of the biggest issues is with the central relationship between Sally and Horatio, as it starts off well, but is ruined when Horatio turns out to be a colossal jerk for no reason. Remember, these are the characters we're supposed to care about. They hint that the sequel would be about Sally trying to find him. But why would we care when it seems that the relationship has become so dysfunctional? Ugh. Why can't we have just reviewed Commando Leopard instead?
Well, we can still review it.
You mean?
Yes! To the past!
Here we are! We've emerged moments before the review!
Get the blind guy! Look, the future of this review depends on this decision. This is the tipping point.
The only way I would change my mind and decide to review Time Runners is if something from one of these films burst in through that door and...
Strong, huh? The campesinos make it on the sly.
I didn't know priests drank that kind of stuff.
They do worse things, some of them.
That sucked. Wish we'd reviewed Time Runners instead. Okay, go.